All right, evening, everybody. This is Scott Reed with Duck Sports Authority, joined as always by Drew Davis, and today our special guest, Marcus Harper, now graduated from the University of Oregon and moving on to the NFL. He's got Pro Day coming up this week, and we were talking a little bit about off-air about that. You were in Knoxville getting some training. Kind of talk about what you learned there, some of the tools that they helped with getting you ready for everything that's about to happen.
Yeah, well, honestly, it was cool to experience Knoxville because I didn't know where I was at comparative to guys that have been in the league, and it was good to see that I actually got a lot of good tools on the front end from college and stuff. So I had a lot of good coaches at Oregon and things like that. Excuse me, but they were just reemphasizing just the little details, right? Like when you have a routine, find a routine that works for you, stick to it, and just hammer that in and day out, right? There's a lot of different things that happen on a day-to-day with college. In your schedule, you got school and all these different things that can come at you last minute. But when you solely just focus on football, like they just reemphasize, like find that routine, stick to it. And then when it came to the football side, like going on board work, everybody has a place and every place has a body, and making sure that just showcasing that to the scouts whenever you do get a chance. So just re-emphasizing the small things, which was good to know that I already had a lot of that ingrained into me early on in college.
Drew, you've been through that before too. Kind of, what's your take on how that process works?
Well, the process, man, just depends on where you're at, but you're going from one level to the next. You're going to the most elite level. You just look around you. You're looking at guys you're training with. Like Marcus said, you're looking at guys that are in the league. You're trying to see how you match up, trying to just see what's special about them. But at that same time, you're just trying to get all your numbers down. You're trying to make sure you come in at the weight you want to come at as far as bench press reps. I know that's very important, just, to put up 20 something for offensive linemen. But you just want to train the best that you can do the best pro day that you can, especially when you don't get invited to the combine like I didn't, like Marcus didn't. This is a big show. This is the big one, but it's still just playing football. But it's at the highest level with scouts watching and with stopwatches and keeping time. So it's the biggest day of the year, but also like you've been working at this every day for the past 2 or 3 months or so. So it's time to roll.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of one of the things that it strikes me. Obviously we forget what it's like to be a college student playing football and how you don't have the time to focus on all the details you might have to now. Do you think, and this is just kind of it's out there just because the transition happened there this year, do you think transitioning to the Big Ten helped you as an offensive lineman get better prepared for this next level?
Honestly, I would say the yes and no. It gave me some of the matchups that will kind of help me check off to see, okay, again, how do I match up versus good interior defensive linemen? The Pac-12 had good interior defensive linemen, but your marquee matchups were mainly in the Big Ten. So you had your Tyleik Williams, you had your Mason Grahams, you had your Kenneth Grants, all these guys who were showcased around America. I had those matchups on a weekly basis. And to see me be successful in those matchups kind of gave what I already knew on the inside, but kind of gave me more assurance on my resume to be like, okay, you can't say I haven't been against top premier matchups, and I've been successful up against it too. So again, it just gives more adds onto my box. But I already knew we were playing physical football in the Pac-12. Just the connotation of the Pac-12 is that it's softer football just because it's the West Coast. So kind of getting that, you kind of scratch that narrative because, again, we came in the Big Ten our first year and not only won the Big Ten championship, but, for me personally, in those matchups versus Michigan and Ohio State, they were very dominant wins. So, I mean, it was beneficial for me, just again, I was able to put my personality and my skills on display for everyone else to see, but I already knew it inside. I'm going to be honest with you.
And I think I saw the stat, was it 376 pass block snaps without allowing a sack this year?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah, and 3 years, no sacks too. No sacks
3 years, no sacks allowed. And I think that's a good part of, again, that narrative of even in the supposedly more physical Big Ten, you still weren't giving up those sacks. And I think that, and yes, facing a Graham and a Kenneth Grant, those are different levels that I think I had seen. UCLA had a good defensive line last year. USC has had some good defensive linemen, but I think that was a different level. And I think there were more of them in the Big Ten as far as elite defensive linemen this year. And watching what Oregon was able to do, watching what you were able to do in those things, I think that really helps with what you're going through. Talk about some of the focus. What are the things that kind of you focused on during your senior season, and then what you learned when you were starting this prep for the pro day that's coming up?
Yeah, so at the start of my senior season, it was making sure I could be dominant for as long as possible for the entire length of the game. There were times in my junior year, depending on whatever situation, I would get rotated in and out. Personally, I didn't like that just because I knew I'm a competitor. I don't like not being in game. So figuring out what I needed to change first about myself, whether it was conditioning or was it a technique deal, was it my health, just whatever. Figure that thing out, and then just at the end of the day, just go play ball. Like it's your last year of football in college. Last time you're gonna be able to play in Austin Stadium, and I had the Big Ten too, so my parents were able to come to a lot of the games. They hadn't come to many games in years prior, so I got to put on a show for the family. You know what I'm saying? So I had to make sure I wanted to go out in dominant fashion, and I was able to get that done. And I'd be lying to you if I say I didn't have some of these marquee matchups circled, like I said, the Michigan and Ohio State games. But it was making sure I put on a consistent, dominant clinic week in and week out, and that's what I did. I accomplished that.
When you went down with what turned out to be not a major injury, but was there even that little inkling when it happened of, this is not the way I had this planned?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. Right when that happened, it was Michigan. It was like the fourth quarter. Routine pass blocking play, and then Grant actually gets slammed into my knee. And honestly, guys, that scared the life out of me because I've had a tricep injury 2 years ago, but I've never had like a lower extremity injury to where it kind of like sidelined me for a long duration of time, especially in season 2. So that kind of spooked me, and I was just like, dang, like, is this over? Luckily, I didn't hear anything pop, so I knew I was going to be back. But again, like, I do understand the road to recovery and how long it kind of takes you to get confident and get comfortable back in the flow of things. But once I figured out that it wasn't a tear and it was just a sprain, I trusted my recovery because I'm a maniac when it comes to recovery. So I knew I was going to be back in dominant fashion as soon as possible. And I mean, I was able to play in the Big Ten championship, so that was happy for me.
What was that like? I was, there was an intense parts of the season. I think the Ohio State matchup the first time, there was a lot of intensity there. What was the difference going from regular season intensity to the Big Ten championship game, the Rose Bowl? That intensity difference. What's that like for you?
Honestly, it's a lot more focused. Like the bigger the stakes, the less I try my hardest not to pay attention to it. I remember that first game, the Ohio State game. That was like the biggest matchup like I've ever been a part of, and I have been here when we played UCLA 2 years back. I played against Washington last year, but I mean, I remember it was either that Thursday or that Friday meeting, and my offensive line coach told me, he was like, these are some of the games that y'all really love to see. Like, this is like 1 versus 2. This is sometimes you get the Alabamas and the Clemsons. This is what that matchup was in season. And I've tried my best not to hype it up, but I can't even lie, sit here and act like I was trying to be too cool and pretend like that wasn't the matchup that I hadn't, dreamt about playing. But I just stuck to my routine and just didn't play. I didn't play the event. I wanted to play the game. So you go to the Big Ten championship. I've been in the championship atmosphere before, and I could just tell the difference. But this time it was different because I was coming off an injury. So I wanted to prove to myself that, okay, you can come back, dominate, and win a championship. Because I've seen a lot of guys come to this program, and they don't have no major championship to hang their hat on for their career. But that entire team was locked in on that mission on getting that Big Ten championship because we knew what we were about, and we were tired of everybody kind of disrespecting us. And same thing for the Rose Bowl. Obviously, the result didn't pan out how we wanted it to be, but you couldn't tell us that we weren't going to go out there and win that natty based on not even based on the event that happened, but based on our preparation, based on how we were practicing, based on everything leading up into that from the season, everything. You couldn't tell us we weren't going to go what would have been 18-0 or 17-0, but everything happens for a reason. So,
I was watching a movie recently, and it's now 25 years old, called The Replacements. Not a great football movie, but there's a one talk line in there where the character that's played by Keanu Reeves talks about quicksand. And I started looking back at the Rose Bowl, and I was thinking it was almost the same thing, this quicksand thing. You start, they get a couple of scores, they get a couple of stops, and all of a sudden you're in this quicksand. You can't find a way out of it. Kind of, is that sort of how you felt, where like you guys were pressing really hard, you were trying to get out of that hole, and you just couldn't quite get that momentum going until right before the end of the first half?
Yeah, I don't want to make any excuses, but this is just real. I don't care who you are. I don't care how long you play football. Anytime you take an extended amount of time off from football and try to get back into that rhythm, it's going to take some time to kind of get back into that flow of the game and kind of get everyone get on synchronization. There's no practice scenario that can emulate that, and we practice till our brains almost out of our head. You know what I'm saying? So like, there's no amount of practice that could have simulated that. And Ohio State was hot. Like, you got to give them their props. They were coming off a very dominant win versus Tennessee the week before. Great team. We just played them at the wrong time of the year. And I mean, we just learned from it. Again, the best thing I was happy about was that we didn't lay down and like let them just keep beating us up. It could have gotten a lot worse if we didn't, at least attempt to put the fire out a lot quicker. So
early in the season, obviously, and I think we talked about this a little bit, but what was the changing point? Because there were some struggles, offensive line in the first 2 games. I think 7 sacks in the first 6 quarters of the season.
Yeah.
What changed for you guys?
We had to make some offensive line adjustments for sure. Instead of me playing left, I went to right, and then we inserted Nashad Strother, which for sure does help. We have someone who's played 4 or 5 years of college football, and then he was starting his 6th year and coming in and being dominant and things like that. Poncho went back to center, so that's where he was familiar at last year. We found a line who everyone wanted to be where they were at, and I'd just say we got the bad stuff out the way early. Like those first 2 weeks, like everybody was sitting up here like, oh, this offensive line isn't this, isn't that, and I'm glad we getting it done. All the respect to Idaho and Boise, because if it would have been like that versus Ohio State the first time, are we still having the same conversation around this offensive line this year? So we were honestly just getting some of the kinks out. You don't want the kinks to result in sacks. Obviously, like no one wants to willingly give up a sack, but that was a byproduct of it. But I remember that's all I kept telling the guys in the line and guys on the team was like, bro, like we're getting the kinks out early, like, and I'm glad everyone's kind of showing their cards right now because was it all really fluff or were y'all really for us or were y'all just like that because the hype was there. So we just and it made it better too. We banded tighter together. We knew what we were in the offensive line. We knew what we were bringing back. We knew how dominant we are, and it was good to kind of just see that start to unfold throughout the entirety of the season. The bigger the matchups got, the better we started playing.
And Joe, I think, was it 2009 that Oregon they lost to Boise State. They struggled with Purdue, I believe. You guys started out slow that year and turned it around too. Was it kind of a similar vibe early in that season? I know there were differences because of the things that happened in Boise, but it was kind of a similar trajectory, I think, for the team that year.
Yeah, I think we were just trying to figure out who we were a little bit, and not to say that Boise State's not a good team, not to say that Purdue's not a good team. That was, Chip's first year at the helm. We're trying to really figure out what direction we're working in. We got a new quarterback. We got some people that are talented or have been talented in fall camp and through the summer. So we're trying to see how that translates to the game. But outside of that, you look around at your teammates and you just keep going out there and you keep playing. And then once you get 1 win, once you get 2 wins, and I think that's the thing about being a football player and playing football. The fans look at it and they're like, oh, I wasn't pretty. It's not this, it's not that. We know who we go to practice with every day. We know what everybody's capable of. And so when things don't turn out the way we want to on game day, like nobody sits there and looks at each other up and down and looks at each other's self-worth. But more so they look at each other and we give each other confirmation and affirmation that we know what they can do. And so we end up having a pretty good year that year. But that, like I said, first year with Chip at the helm, first year with some new head coaches and some positions. LaMichael gets to play a lot based upon LeGarrett's mistake and things like that. So it ends up working out for the better from what we went through. And that's kind of just how football is.
Yeah. And I think that was the biggest thing we were able to take away too, was just like everyone was looking around because, like you said, Drew, we're looking at fall camp and you seeing, Dylan throw the Tez, Dylan throw the Ferg. You seeing all this. It's almost like the Harlem Globetrotters, like for real. It's like a real circus, and you watching it in practice, like, bro, I'm a part of this. And then, like you said, those first early weeks, we're like, if you would have walked around that facility, you would have thought we were 0-2, like the way we were holding. But it was almost like we knew what we were capable of because we see it in practice. And the fact that we weren't seeing that byproduct out on Saturday, we were like disappointed. But we had the wins, but we just weren't satisfied with them, I guess. And so we just, again, everybody just kind of woosah, have to rub the ears a little bit, calm it down. You know what I'm saying? And then, but once we got in the flow of things, and everything starts to blossom how it needs to blossom. So I just reiterate, bro, get the kinks out early, and then you'll be okay.
And we talked before about the coming from Chicago area, what was it like, the adjustment? Because, even though Chicago, you lived in the suburb of Chicago, you still lived in Chicago for the most part.
Yeah.
Eugene is different than that, right? It's a different world. What was that adjustment like?
Well, I don't like all this rain that we got. It's raining out right now, so that's number one. Chicago at least give me 4 seasons, summer, winter, spring, and fall. Eugene, winter is most guys is, it's just a bunch of rain. It's really just rain season. But it's different though. We had a lot of nature that we had going on out here. Never thought I would see myself going out and just taking walks here and there, putting my feet in the water, playing with some seashells from time to time. No, but it was just different though. I've never been on the Pacific Northwest at all. But that was my intention though, was to kind of put myself in a very uncomfortable situation to where I don't have to, I got to learn the culture, just understand what life is like outside of Chicago. But it was nice though. I say every young man needs to get away from the house at some point in time. So I just did 17. So
Drew, you came from Colorado, right?
Correct.
Well, yeah, also a little bit different from Colorado to Oregon, right?
Very different. When I first got out there, they were calling those little hills mountains, and I was very confused about that.
Yeah.
Because Mount Hood has an elevation of a little over 13,000 feet. And when I drove through the Eisenhower Tunnel, that's like 11.8 driving. You can't drive over the very peak of Mount Hood. So, no, you're right. They're not really mountains out here compared to where you're from. One of the things I think was funny, Drew, Mark, we talked about this on the last conversation where you had said to one of the reporters, why not Oregon? But now you've been at Oregon for several years. Now say why Oregon? What is it about Oregon that you think made your decision the right decision?
Honestly, and see, it's different. I didn't subscribe to the new Oregon. You know what I'm saying? I was a part of like the older Oregon. It was just different. I don't like that's so like, oh, what does that mean? I couldn't tell you. You literally have to like experience it. I knew Oregon was gonna give me opportunity for me to be myself authentically. And it was just gonna give me a chance to figure out like who is Marcus at 17 and how does he grow from 17 to 22 without feeling like judged, I guess you could say, figuring it out, by myself essentially. But just the culture that's here is very family oriented, and that's not even a facade. Like it's just every person always comes back. Like I just saw Holden Whipple, who's offensive lineman. He's now part of the crew over at the facility, and it's just like the proof is in the pudding. There's no way you can't tell me that guys who used to play on the team always want to come back. You know what I'm saying? And Landon's doing an even better job of keeping open doors because me, Tez, and Tashin walked up in the practice the other day like we was about to practice, and it was kind of like an open door policy in a sense. But it's just that family feel, and they let everyone be their own individual. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's crucial, especially around this time where guys are trying to figure out who they are, what they like to do, and things like that. So
awesome. Now we got the big thing coming up this week is Pro Day. I believe is it on Wednesday this week?
Tuesday.
What are you thinking? What's your mindset going into the Pro Day headed into that?
I'm about to dominate per usual. You know what I'm saying? I feel towards the way I didn't get, certain things, or I didn't, get the invite and things like that. But I'm ready to go out there and dominate and show what I already know is a great offensive lineman and has a lot of capabilities and a lot of attributes to himself that can be an additive to offensive line room. And it'd be on your best interest to invest in them. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, I'm not shaking off of that. I'm ready to kind of, get it over with and kind of, it's like another game day for me. Everything leading up to game day is very, routine and redundant. I'm ready to go out there and do my thing because I know what I've been prepping for.
And I think one of the things about doing a Pro Day, have you already started talking with different teams, doing those early just those talks that teams will have before they come out and scout you?
Yeah, there are some, but I know majority of my conversations are going to be on the back end after the Pro Day. That's just how confident I am. I know I'm about to dominate. They're going to see something that, most offensive linemen don't do. So, but yeah, there are some in talks, obviously, that are coming up there to see me. But, after Tuesday, I'm going to be on some Drake, some Hotline Bling type,
Without giving away too much, what do you think is going to happen Tuesday that's going to surprise not just the scouts, but some of those of us that'll be in attendance watching you perform.
Yeah, honestly, just the athleticism. Like I know what I put out there on the film, but just to see moving in different drills and things like that, it'll be nice to see for you guys to watch that show. I'll bring some popcorn too, depending on what flavors you got. I'll bring some, you know.
Drew, what's it like to be out there on a pro day? Kind of some advice maybe from your perspective. I know Mark's got a lot of good advice in Knoxville, but kind of your advice on what it's going to be like out there.
And pro days are awesome. It's going to be kind of just like that morning that you're stepping out there for weightlifting or conditioning, but you don't have to do any of that. You're just out there to run your 40. You're out there to test. Like I said, he's been working on this for 2 to 3 months, so I'm sure he's going to do awesome. But it's just, you want to make sure you don't oversleep. So don't oversleep that alarm clock. But outside of that, just making sure treating it like you do a game day, waking up, eating the meal that you eat, or I don't really eat before the game just because I don't like to be too full. So just making sure you wake up, eat your breakfast, get to the facility, stretch out, listen to whatever music you need to listen to. And when the scouts say bring it up and let's roll, just be ready to roll. So it's just electric. Like pro days over the last 5 or 10 years have grown so big that it just looks like a super glorified practice. You got a bunch of people that are around you, supporting you. They're rooting for you. They want to see you do well. And that energy is contagious. So just take it all in and enjoy it.
Yeah. What was like your best when you, because people don't talk about this though too, like your pro day, that's the last time that you're on your college, your college campus, on that college field as like a student athlete. What did that moment feel like for you? Because I'm coming from an era where guys are kind of leaving, and I'm in one college this year. I'm one of the few guys that are like been here for that's 5 years. You were there too for your entire tenure. What was that feeling like when you pro day was done and you just sitting over there like, that's my last time performing with the guys in college?
It felt good. It was also just that feeling of, all right, this is it. I'm wrapped up. I did well, so now there's some things that are going to have to move forward. But it was more so just saying goodbye to everybody too. After that, everybody goes a bunch of different ways. You shake hands. He said, I'll see you when I see you. And everybody has each other's number. But just from that point, you kind of just look back at your career a little bit and see what you did and smile about it. So I'm pretty sure you're like when you've been to every pro day, you watched your teammates before, you've been like, I can't wait for this is me. So tomorrow it is you, and hopefully you had that support and you enjoy it.
Cool.
Some feedback going on.
Yeah.
Are we better?
I think it's on Marcus.
Let me try something here. Yeah, there's something on Marcus's end, I think, that's causing the feedback, because I muted his mic and that feedback went away.
Hold on, man.
Hey, don't be messing up the interview, Marcus.
Man, my bad, dog. I'm sitting over here trying to be professional, man. Got the glasses on. I'm taking the glasses off. Probably the glasses blocking. Yeah, that is me. What am I doing? I ain't in no car. Huh. Well, we're gonna pretend like it's not there. All right, cool. Let's go.
Oh wait, that's better than sort of.
I start touching stuff. See what happens, Drew? You start messing with stuff. Start messing with stuff. Figure out something.
What are you looking to most on Tuesday?
Honestly, there's a sense of gratitude that I can see myself like just dominating with, and just to really just be, like Drew was saying, like immerse myself in that last moment with like a special team. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't know what the future has up ahead for you in terms of like NFL and things like that. And it's just being over there with, I'm gonna have Dylan, Tez, Bossa, guys that I remember the workouts, you know what I'm saying? I remember the fights, you know what I'm saying? I remember the trips. And I remember the times I was behind the ropes watching people do their pro day, and now like I'm living in that moment, and just to see that moment and really be like have a sense of gratitude and sense of like accomplishment. Like I never would have thought, again, coming out here 2,000 miles from Chicago, that it would amount to this, that I'd be on, the former #1 team in the nation, Big Ten champ, all conference three. Like I couldn't have told you that when I came to Oregon. I just, stepped out on the limb and was like, all right, we gonna ball. You know what I'm saying? But I'm looking forward to really just hanging out with the guys one last time, because it's not guaranteed that you get a team of this specialty again in the future. So just playing with them and seeing everyone just enjoy themselves, really.
And I can tell you from a perspective as somebody who was played a long time before you guys, but one of the guys that played in 1888, he came out to a game last year, and it was like in part. It was like we were playing football. He was a tight end. I was a fullback. We still banged heads a lot because that's the way it goes. Especially in the way we banged heads a lot. And it was just so fun to be back in that moment. Like it never, like time had not passed, stood still. I think you probably feel like that's down the road, but next is right. You got to do some work here. I think that would be special for you. One of the things that is you did not you were kind of a basketball fan.
That's that Chicago in me. I promise you. Like I remember, my dad. We had the Super Bowl on, or we had some game on, and it was Chicago Bears. I remember this vividly. Walking down the stairs, and I look at the TV, and I just keep walking past. Like so disinterested with football. Like turn me on that '09 Chicago Bulls. I want to see Jimmy Butler, Joe Kim Noah. That's what I was trying to watch. But it was because my dad, he just wouldn't let me play so early. He wouldn't let me play so early. He knew what I was going to be in terms of like offensive line wise. So he was like, dude, like save your joints. And I'm like, yeah, okay, like whatever. You just don't want me to play ball. Fast forward to, freshman year, I put on the pads, and all it took was one play for me, and I like just fell in love with football. Like I just was always trying to watch film, always trying to grow, always trying to figure out, okay, who can I emulate? That's when I started looking at the Cowboys and seeing the legacy of those guys, because I don't know how I just stumbled upon that, but like understanding like Larry Allen is the greatest offensive lineman ever. You know what I'm saying? So just immersing myself in football and culture and everything like that, and we just became one. Honestly,
does it feel real to be less than 10 years from that first day you had after the NFL
draft? Yeah, but it fits me though. Like it's not so out there that I'm like, oh, this is so beyond. This is so like against who I am. No, like looking at what I'm doing now, like it's a part, like it doesn't shock me. Yes, it does. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't, like I don't look at it from a sense of like this isn't. I'm not worthy of this. Like no, like I know the work that I put in. I know the grind. I know the studying I've done. Just everything and the honestly the God-given ability that I've been blessed with. I know that through and through. And this again, it's just surreal. When I step in those moments, it don't feel like it. But when I take a step back, put it into perspective, it's like, dog, you done some crazy stuff. And I'm only 22, so that's the crazy part too. I'm just getting started. I tell Drew that all the time. I'm just getting started. Every time you see me, I'm just getting started with something, man.
I'm gonna say, from my perspective, soak up the atmosphere. Look around and remember every moment we put into the blood, sweat, and tears in that moment, and appreciate the moment for what it is, because it's something that means the next step, and enjoy it. It's gonna be fun, and challenging, and it's that next step. Of course,
Big Marshall, yeah. Another thing, that was something I never thought I'd see myself doing up until, a couple months ago, honestly, a little less than a year ago. Opportunity was presented to me, and I just took it and ran with it, I know offensive linemen are, notoriously guys who are in front of the camera, but I know I can break that mold, and I just continue to break that mold daily. So, the Big Mark Show was just a small glimpse of what I'm going to do on the media side, honestly, because I like doing it. I like putting my guys in front of the camera and just getting to know them outside of their profession. Like so many times, only time you see or talk about, Jeff Bossa is when he's making a tackle. But y'all didn't know that go watch the episode with me, Bossa, and Betch, and you figured out Bossa likes a certain cologne, and Devin Jackson is a finance nerd, and Betch likes to do some outdoor stuff. But like those are things that you just wouldn't know, and honestly that's what being around me does. Like I honestly like don't really care about the status and things like that. I like talking to people, and I'm just fascinated by your profession. So whether it be the rapper, whoever, like that's anything I do big mark show wise is going to be that, just talking to people outside of their profession and getting to know them as human beings, because that's what really matters too, is like making sure that human being is okay, because that profession is going to come and go.
Man, just congrats on having a great career, great year last year. There's no way to take away from that. You guys were the second undefeated Oregon team in history through the regular season. But man, it's just been great to watch you play. It's been able to watch you grow as a young man. So like, just go out there Tuesday, lay it all on the field. Just say thank you, all the trainers, all the coaches that are around that helped you get to where you're trying to get to. And this is, like you said, it's only beginning, and you're just getting started.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm just happy. And I'm happy it's coming today. But like I said, I'm just getting started with every single thing. So, it's more in store for me for sure. I know that.
We could talk all night, Mark. I'm going to let you probably get out of here so you can get some rest, get you ready for Tuesday. But we'll definitely be covering it. A little fact that I don't think some people know is Mason will also be participating, taking his next shot as well at Kodak. So that's one of those things that I think people forget is even if you don't, when he didn't make it, he kept working, and he's going to get his next shot here too. So enjoy yourself. Thank you for all of the time today, and I'm going to mute that so I don't have feedback. But thank you for your time today. I really appreciate you joining us. I really appreciate Drew helping out. I think having these conversations with players like this really adds a lot of depth to the fans understanding what you're going through and kind of what the season was like. And I know, fans live it through their own experience, and to hear it from you, to hear it from Drew after the fact, I think really helps. And I really appreciate you taking the time to join us, and I'm going to wish you a ton of luck. I'll not add my adjective in front of ton, but a ton of luck, and hopefully the preparation is off on Tuesday.
Appreciate it so much. I appreciate y'all for having me. It's good always being able to come in and talk. Drew, I'm gonna catch up with you, man, and I'm gonna go do my thing.